a photogrammetry model that Christopher Morris sent me via email. He saw that I was working on this stuff and he's like, hey, you should check this out. He has done a bunch of photogrammetry and he sent me this model. Took me a little bit to get it in there just because it had a little bit different settings than what Polycam has. And he also sent me a CaveWhere model. So I have the sketch data and the survey data. So I initially put in all the survey stations into the LiDAR model so they would kind of fit the survey line. And I was like, oh, okay, it seems like it's working pretty well. And I kind of started on this end of the whole thing. And I worked my way over here. And then I started realizing, oh, wow, this model, these two things don't match at all. Like this survey line's going through the wall. Something weird is happening. And so we emailed back and forth and he told me, hey, look, the photogrammetry models aren't scaled. And that is very true. So when you're doing photogrammetry, it's just looking at the photos, unlike LiDAR where there's actually like a physical scale to it. So you have to scale and orient the models correctly. Luckily in CaveWhere, I have something that automatically helps you out with this problem. And so when you have the scale wrong, what happens is essentially you start off and like it's just a little bit off here, and then it just keeps on propagating that error. And it'll also make your passages a little bit wider than they should be. Like you can kind of see here, you know, we're several feet off. I don't know what the scale of this, what that distance is, but anyways, you know, the model doesn't really match up that great. So to calculate the scale in a LiDAR or a photogrammetry model, there's this little button in here that allows you to scale things. So if we go from A9, and we'll get real close here. If we go to A9 to A10, it'll tell you, okay, this is 16.2 units in the model. And these units are kind of arbitrary in a photogrammetry model, but we'll just say that, you know, this is we know the actual distance in real life, and that would be A9 to A10 is 42.99 feet. So we'll enter that in there, and it's in feet. We'll hit apply. Now, when you do that, I'm going to just get rid of these stations here, just rename them for right now, something that doesn't exist. And these are already renamed. So when you do that, it rescales the model. And if you remember that this was like way out here and now it's moved in and you're like, oh, wow, this is actually way better. And potentially, you know, this feature is off by like a foot. So maybe this station's actually over there. But it's looking a lot better. All right, so yeah, this looks far better. If we turn off our LiDAR, we can actually see like, okay, you got these little three things and they're matching up over there pretty well. Of course, we have none of those stations are exactly in the right spot. Maybe our scale is still a little bit off, or the station's a little bit off. So we can look at our plan and like, okay, it kind of swoops over there and there's a floor step, and maybe we'll turn off the plan. This is probably what we're seeing there. I mean, that looks pretty reasonable to me without knowing exactly where the station is. You know, sometimes you can pick up the station if it's like big and bold, but not in this case. So anyways, I believe I had the station before out here. It certainly moved to this other spot. So let's just look at what this looks like. Okay, it's on a floor step. And what's our running profile? It's kind of mid-passage floor step. mid-passage floor step. Turn off our running profile. If I was going to guess, if I was a surveyor, I'd probably be going off of this thing right there. And it is, I believe, it's on the wall. So let's just plug in that little point there for yeah. So the scaling is really affected where I think these stations are. So we'll drag this guy over here and we'll rename it to something real. And that will kind of adjust everything. So now let's look at like what our profile is. All right. Are we too high? No, I think that's reasonable. Things are matching up pretty good and downstream. All right, let's see where A7's ending up here. So A7 is near the ceiling, and in the plan, there's kind of some floor step stuff. So okay, let's look at the LiDAR again. So it's near the ceiling. Yeah, so it's probably, and it's over top of this zone. So I would guess that it's going to be like in this area. All right, let's go spin this around. A7 is going to be moved to the ceiling area. Let's call it like there. That seems reasonable. Right? A7, wapow. All right, and it's going to morph. Things are still looking good here. All right, so now our A6, I think that's looking a lot better on our plan. Oh yeah, definitely looking better for sure. Again, if I actually had the stations, this is probably line up even better. So yeah, that's making more sense. No idea where that station's going to be, but let's look at the plan. And all right, so into the floor step, there's a bunch of slope marks into floor step, bunch of slope marks. I would guess that that's going to be in this zone over here. It's a little bit longer than I would probably like, but since we don't know exactly where the stations are, and I don't know exactly what the scale is, we're just gonna plug that over here. So, oh, I actually have that, yeah. A6. That's gonna be moved. All right. Super duper. Wow, okay, that turned out better than I expected it to. Yeah, that's looking great. So yeah, that's looking pretty good. We're shooting through the floor there. This is a floor shot on A5, but from a, yeah, that's looking great. We can also just double check our scaling. Right here, let's do that. The scaling is probably going to be, we'll go here. And what is that? That's A6 to A5, A6 to A7, 23.95. Okay, so yeah, there's a bit of a scaling difference. We went from 0.8 to 0.7. Yeah, so the real scale is somewhere in there. I think I kind of feel like 0.8 might be a little bit better. I like that better, but yeah, I need an undo. We'll just put this one back in. Woo. Need an undo. I guess I could, yeah, I could put 0.8 in there. This 0.7 needs a little more decimal place action. was 42.99. Yeah. But you can see like the scale really makes a big difference on everything. Yeah, it's pretty sensitive, so you got to make sure your scale is correct. But this is looking really cool, and yeah, it might be something that you can use. Like that lines up really nicely. It's probably something you could use to finish sketching the cave or just sketch the cave directly. But I think these survey lines are really important to getting your photogrammetry model scaled correctly and everything looking really good. But this is overall, this is a really fantastic sketch. And thank you, Christopher, for sending this over to me. Okay, until next time.